Welcome to Transformed, a program about ordinary people being transformed by the amazing power of God. And today we have our third program in a series where we've been talking about the wonder of life, where we've been talking about what Choices of Life actually does in the schools, why Choices of Life actually exists in the first place, and the foundation that we have in the Word of God. And we come to the point where we must be reminded about the wonder of who we are. We're fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God. But today, we need to focus in on what we speak about in a secondary school context. We're going to talk about the very, very important message that builds on the reality of the value of life and what happens if we take away that value. What happens if we make decisions that destroy the very life that God has created? And with me in the studio today, I have Madeline. Welcome, Madeline.
Thanks, Bruce.
And Dale.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And Madeline, let's start with you today. You've just finished high school.
Yes, I have.
You've just gone through the whole high school certificate process.
Yep.
Exhausted, all those sorts of things. You're now at university.
Yep.
And you're seeking to do some studies there. But one of the things you did when you were in high school was to put together a project, an art project, for your high school certificate, which focused on this whole issue of abortion. Tell us what you did.
Yeah, so I created an artwork. It was out of 90 canvases. They were all screen printed with a fetus on it. And then I displayed them all on the floor, and the backgrounds were all collaged, and some of them had like material from like diapers and safety pins, things related to the process of a baby developing. And then each one of them had a bit of red, which symbolized that they were all different. So they all, from a distance, they all looked the same. They were the exact same screen print. But then as you looked up closer, they were all different. So
they're unique creations, as we are.
Yeah. But they were all fetuses. So kind of just like playing off the idea of abortion and how each child that is terminated, like they are all very different and they are all unique.
Never to be repeated. So if one is lost through an abortion process, they're never going to be here again because that one is unique.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing thing too, isn't it? That our uniqueness is still represented in those little ones that are aborted.
Yeah.
So did you get some sort of reaction from the other students at school, from the teachers, from maybe the Board of Education?
Yeah. So the Board of Studies were fine. The teachers were really lovely and supportive, which was nice. And the students, most of them were fairly good. But I was just really thankful, like students would come in and I'd be working on it and they'd just ask all these questions and ask why I didn't agree with abortion, and it was just a really great conversation starter. So it was good for that, as well as creating an artwork about it.
So that gave you an opportunity just to share some of the things that were on your heart
as
to why you did this particular project.
Yep, definitely,
So that, when we're thinking about the secondary school program being quite different to the primary school program, the primary one obviously talks about the wonder of life in totality, from conception to birth. So how is the secondary program, do you think, different to that?
Yeah, so it still emphasises the value of life and goes on about that, but it's different, as the students are a fair bit older. It talks more about, I guess, after a woman has terminated her child, like the possible, the implications that it can have for her, like the grief, depression, physical impacts that it could have. So I guess focusing a bit more on abortion than just the value of life.
And one of the important issues in all of this is that we're not coming with a judgmental attitude. We're coming with a very clear attitude that says, okay, if that sort of decision is something that someone else has made, then we come with hey, there's an opportunity for forgiveness, there's opportunity for healing, there's opportunity for all those sorts of things. Now, Madeline, when we talk about the value of human life and those sorts of things, some people say in your mother's womb you're just a blob of cells. What can we show them to prove that that's not the case?
Yeah, ultrasounds have been very helpful. As soon as you can see inside the womb, you can tell that it's not just a blob of cells. You can see by these models, again, like you look at that and it doesn't look like nothing. Looks like something very significant. Just it looks exactly like a baby, just at a younger stage, which is what it is. So I think the models and ultrasound, I think they speak for themselves in demonstrating that you can't just call that a blob of cells.
So that there, I mean, in some places, even at 14 weeks, they're very vulnerable to an abortion. And to say that's just a blob of cells is plain nonsense if you can see all the details that are there. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just astounding. And when you have those in the classroom, it's great to show the reality of the little baby inside the womb. Now, we can move on from there and we can say, well, okay, if someone is going to have an abortion and we've got just a blob of cells here, we can refute that very easily with plain, simple information. We don't have to argue. We don't have to say, I don't agree with you. Just say, have a look at this. And I've found that a lot of women who are thinking about having an abortion, as soon as they see the ultrasound and they see the reality of the baby in the womb, then they say, I can't have an abortion. That's a baby.
It's enough to just see it.
And it's not trying to convince them, it's not doing anything, just showing them information. And that's what we need to do in the secondary program. And that's what we need to be doing very, very clearly to show that as they get the information, now they can make a valid choice. One of the issues that does come up too, and I'm going to talk to Dale just for a moment on this one, some people say that abortion, a decision about abortion, is just a woman's issue. Only a woman can make the decisions between her and her doctor. It's funny, isn't it? Because I've discovered that a baby only comes into existence because of both male and female. That's interesting. So why suddenly, when the baby is conceived, becomes just the property of the mother? And the father's got nothing to do with it. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. But I come to it from another point of view on the same issue. How does abortion affect a female? Yes, we can talk about that, but what about the effect of abortion on a man? Because if abortion affects a man, we need to be very, very careful about what we say about being just a woman's issue. Now, Dale, you've been with me to a school where we've spoken to a Year 11 group.
Yes.
And we'll meet Zach later on. Zach was in that class. And I invited you to come out and speak to those students. It was a bit scary at the time, but you did a fantastic job. You got up and you spoke and you shared something from your heart. What would you like to share with us today that might just encapsulate a little bit of what you said on that day and maybe how the students responded, including young Zach?
Yes, Bruce. It's been nearly 30 years when I coerced my then wife into having a couple of abortions, and I think what I wanted to share with the children were that it does affect men. You're quite right. It does affect men deeply. And what I sort of shared was the fact that how long I had lived with that grief, how long I'd lived with that shame, that regret, but also the guilt, because I've come to realise that I was 100% responsible for that. I blame her, not one little bit. I've taken full responsibility for that because I know that my thought was we couldn't afford it, and that was my number one consideration, was the fact that it was more than we could afford. And I wanted to get that across to the children, was the fact that you can make a decision which at the time seemed right, it seemed proper, But the effects down the track were absolutely devastating. I couldn't begin to imagine what we went through. And as I said, it's only been just in literally the last few months that I've been able to receive that healing. I've been able to forgive myself for what I've done. And thanks to God and thanks to you, I've now got a platform, I suppose, to share that with other people. With regards to the young people there, they actually received me very well. I was very nervous, as you know.
They did. They were very.
I was terrified. I really was. And just to clarify, I don't recall it as an invitation. It was more like a, you have to, otherwise you're walking home. So I wanted to make people know that. And so, but just the respect that I felt, the respect that these young people gave me, because to stand up, to stand up as a 50-plus-year-old man and confess one of the worst sins imaginable, it was actually very, very healing for me. And at the end, Zach in particular, yes, I do remember Zach. But even I think maybe two of the girls came up and spoke to me afterwards and just thanked me for being so honest and sharing. And I think that touched me more than you could imagine. It was very, very healing, very, very healing. And I guess if I could just say one thing, is that if that prevents one woman, one guy that was there on that day, from deciding to terminate rather than keep their child, I'd consider that worthwhile. So yeah, no, I was very pleased, very pleased.
Yeah, and this is probably the second time that you've actually, in a public sense, told even part of your story.
Publicly, yes. Yeah, publicly.
So after 30 years, that's a pretty momentous thing to do. So we thank you for being willing to share that with us today, because
You're most welcome.
maybe there's someone out there who is going through the same sort of trauma in their own life, and they're trying to work out, now, what can I do? Where can I go? Can I be healed? Why am I hurting? Is anyone else hurting? Well, you've just heard that Dale's hurting, still carries the regret. The Lord Jesus has healed the pain. I still see the tears occasionally, Dale.
Yeah.
And I know the pain is still there.
And you will still continue to see them, yeah.
And I know the pain is still there. But thank you for sharing that, and maybe there's someone who will be encouraged by exactly what you've shared with us today. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Sometimes people tell us that it's a woman's choice, just a woman's issue. But let's approach it from a different angle, because sometimes when we talk about this particular issue and saying it's just a woman's choice, inferring that inside her body, the little growing baby is just part of her body. We're unique, aren't we?
Yeah.
We have our own DNA. So if we're unique and we have our own individual DNA, then there's no person exactly the same as anyone else. So that little baby is unique from conception. Amazing, isn't it? That here we are, some people making choices on the basis that I was just part of my body, so therefore it's my choice, it's my life, I can do as I please. But we're taking away someone else's right to live. And that's a challenge in itself, isn't it? Now, looking at some of the information that has been coming out of research, we're going to look at that in a moment. We're going to look at how research is telling us how many people actually have abortions because they choose to. It's a big choice, but how many actually choose to have an abortion because they think it's a good idea? We'll come back to that in just a moment. But now I want to bring us to an interview. Roseanne we talked to, and I asked Roseanne some questions, and let me just mention to you some of those questions. And with her is Laura Pavey, who also has been through an abortion decision. She twice, like yourself, been through the abortion experience twice. We talked to Roseanne, we talked to Laura, and both of them shared a little bit about their experience in front of an abortion clinic, because it's important. Because what happens when someone goes to have an abortion and they meet someone in front of the abortion clinic? How do they feel? How do they respond to that? How do the people who are standing there trying to say, hey, we want to help you save your baby? What do they say? Let's listen to what Roseanne and Laura have to share with us now. And after we come back, we'll meet Frances, who has some things to share with us about a woman's choice and how many people actually have that abortion because they've chosen to. Let's go to Roseanne and Laura.
Confrontation in front of abortion clinics, people holding up signs that are graphic, people holding even the lovely models that Choices of Life uses is very upsetting for the woman who's had to make an already difficult choice. The so-called choice to terminate the life of another human being is never an easy one. As somebody who has had to make that decision and who has survived that decision, it was already too late. It's already something that is heartbreaking. It's unfortunate that quite often it would be too late for that support to be taken up. What needs to happen, and the way that our laws fail us so much, is that the information is not readily available. When a woman walks into an abortion clinic, she's not provided with enough information, she's not provided with counselling, she's not provided with information about support services that are available to her. Should she choose to make a different decision? It's the so-called choice of abortion isn't really a choice when there's no other options that are given. It doesn't make sense to me to call something a choice when there's no other options that are readily available, that are readily identified. It doesn't make it a choice. It makes it a no-brainer. Well, I don't know what else to do. There is nothing else to do. I'm going to do the only thing that I know how to do. That is what goes through these young these young families' minds when faced with no other option.
Occasionally I go to an abortion clinic, and we're very lucky if anybody will generally talk to us at that stage. The truth of the matter is that our laws really fail women in regard to abortion. So many women are entering these clinics with so little information. They don't know about, first of all, how the abortion is going to be performed. They don't know anything about what the long-term consequences of abortion might be, and they basically don't know about how developed their baby is. So just this misinformation shows the importance of getting education to women before they reach that stage. I mean, the fact is that we have far more regulations and laws about new food products going onto our supermarket shelves and all the labelling requirements and all the information that has to be available for us than women have that go into an abortion clinic. It's really just spells out the dire need for education.
If somebody had offered me support, if somebody had offered me a choice, if somebody had provided me with a counselling service prior to the actual abortion taking place, it would never have happened. I would have a 16-year-old sitting next to me right now. It's something that really needs to be done, but the message must be made in a loving, positive, supportive way. Anything else is just going to drive that woman away. It's going to make her feel worse about what's happening to her and about what will happen to her in the future.
And thanks to God for Roseanne and Laura. Roseanne having spent time standing in front of an abortion clinic, and to encourage those who are coming in for abortions to think of other options, and for Laura, who shared a little bit of her own story and how she responded to those who were standing in front of the abortion clinic when she was heading there herself. It's just so encouraging to know that there are people doing that, as well as helping to go into schools. Now, I'd like to move back to the issue of choice, and we have Frances here. Welcome, Frances.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you for coming and joining us now.
It's great to be here.
And just want to ask you about the issue of choice. We talked before about how some people say it's a woman's choice to, to terminate, to have an abortion. What would you say about that?
So choice is actually a very interesting issue here because research is coming out of America from the Elliott Institute, which is actually indicating that 68% of women who went for abortions felt like they had no choice at all. And so
it's not a matter of having a choice, it's a matter of having no choice.
Basically, yes. And so if you translate that to Australia, that means that around 70,000 women per year are choosing abortion because it's their only option and they have no other choice but abortion, or that's what they feel. And so if we bring that down to how many women feel like they have no choice a day, that's roughly around 200 women per day, because there's 300 abortions in Australia every single day.
That's amazing. It's an amazing number, isn't it, when you think about it, that if we have 300 abortions a day, 200 really feel very much coerced into having that.
Definitely.
Doesn't the Elliott Institute have a slogan? They talk about the unchoice.
Abortion is the unchoice.
They call it the unchoice, and that's 2/3 at least that they can estimate are in that situation, and that's appalling when you think of the pro-choice lobby.
It's all about a woman's choice.
Amazing, isn't it? That really that choice is not there. That's an amazing number. If you think that out of the 300 abortions a day in Australia alone, that 200 of them really feel they have no choice. They've been coerced. Actually, I think the Elliott Institute have a slogan. They talk about abortion being the unchoice because they recognise that women just don't have choices in many instances, at least 2/3 of them. So let's move on, because I spoke to Susan and I talked to Susan about why people say they have abortions, and we're told often that abortion happens because maybe the woman has been raped, or they've discovered the baby has a disability, or the mum's life is at risk. And we're told these are the major reasons why abortion should be available. So I asked Susan these questions, and she came with a response to that, and we'd like to listen to what she has to say in just a moment. But following on from Susan, I have a couple of people that I'd like to speak to us, and one of them is young Zach. We mentioned Zach before, and when Dale was here, and Zach was a student in the school where Dale actually shared his story in a school classroom for the first time, and it was just an amazing experience just to see the response of those students and Dale's response to them as well. And we're going to meet Zach, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what happened on that occasion.
I personally don't believe that most women who have abortions do so because it's an easy thing to do. I believe each abortion is connected to a decision that's painful and difficult and heart-wrenching. And when a woman is faced with one of these three issues, rape, a baby's disability, or a serious medical problem, then that only compounds the problems that she's faced with. However, to suggest that these issues account for the majority of abortions is blatantly wrong. Records in Western society show that these three factors combined only account for between 3 and 4% of all abortions. The South Australian Parliament's Abortion Reporting Committee lists mental health of the woman to account for the remaining 96%. So in Australia, that's up to 96,000 abortions every year. Now, the problem with this is that their category is extremely poorly defined. In all practicality, it could potentially mean almost anything. I'm convinced that our school students need to know the truth. They deserve the truth. So I'm also preparing to be a part of the team that goes into secondary schools.
You came down and shared with us the Choices of Life program with my then Year 12 class. We just started Year 12, and I remember Dale, he shared his testimony, and I think people were challenged and encouraged in different ways. I think people reacted differently. But no, it was a really great afternoon, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I love talking to you both afterwards, and still being part of the ministry that you have started, or God started through you.
So how did some of your friends react?
You know, Bruce, you've probably heard this before, but some people go, how can you say that to me? You know, this is my decision, and it's all up to me, and I can do what I want. It's my body. But then there were some people who actually took it on in a more positive way and go, do you know what? I'll definitely consider that. I don't know if anyone in my class has been in that position when they really have to make a choice about life, but I'm sure when they will, their reaction will be different. Even from before I was born, when I was still in my mum's tummy, I was designed and created so intricately by God to do such a unique work and to be someone so unique that I just was so encouraged. That's the one initial thing that I got out of it, was that encouragement.
So that's a good thing for year 12, isn't it? As you're going into big exam year and all those sort of things. What am I going to do next year? God has a plan.
Yes.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and just shown, even if you can't see the plan, you can see that from what he's already done, he's got to have something in store. All I want to do, I want to preach. I love that, and my friends and I, we run a youth church down in our local area in Bowral, and I'm off to Africa at the end of the year with my grandmother. We're going to be doing a bit of mission work over there.
With your grandma?
With my grandma. And then hopefully, God willing, I'm going to go to Bible school next year. And then after that, it's all up to him, because sometimes he lets you see a little bit, and then after that, it's a bit blurry, but that's what makes it exciting.
Praise God for people like Susan and for Zach. I mean, what an amazing story that Zach was able to share about what happened in his classroom. Other information that's just as important as we share all the things that we've done already. Madeline, sometimes the whole pro-choice lobby would like to just dismiss the reality of the effects of abortion. They say, have your abortion, it's over and done with, get on with life. Is that the reality?
Definitely not, especially for the unborn child. There's no second chance after it's been terminated, but also for the woman there's physical implications. There's a possibility of infertility, miscarriages, breast cancer, and obviously a woman who doesn't have an abortion there's a possibility that they can suffer from these things, but it's an increased risk when a woman does have an abortion, and they may not be
So it doesn't
aware.
seem to solve too many problems, does it?
No, in fact, it often would create more.
Create more problems.
Yeah.
And what about in a psychological sense? Are there things that might happen in a psychological sense that a woman who has an abortion might experience?
Yeah, so adding to all the physical implications that are possible, there's quite a significant amount who will suffer from depression and guilt, maybe not straight away, but sometime in their life, maybe when they have another child. It can happen at different points for different women, but there's definitely a high chance that will happen.
So what we've been sharing today is quite an amazing story that has been replicated in many, many women throughout the world every day. And they're suffering the consequences of what some people say was choice when there's really no choice. They're suffering from things they say, well, if you have this, it'll solve your problem, and it creates more problems. So thank you to Francis.
It was great being here. Thank you, Bruce.
And thank you to Madeline for your contribution to the program today. It's been very worthwhile. And to Dale, he shared very openly about his own experience, and to others who actually have contributed to our program today. It's a very difficult issue to discuss, isn't it? But we've sought to do justice to it today as much as we possibly could, because we must discuss this issue. It's a very important one. We need to get it out in the open. As John chapter 10 verse 10 says, the thief comes to steal, kill and destroy. He wants to steal the truth. He wants to take away the information. He wants to take away these things that we've been sharing today. And as we go into schools, we want to present the truth. We don't want to be party with those who would steal the truth. We don't want to kill, we don't want to destroy, as that's what Satan does through the whole abortion experience. But we want to bring that hope and that healing that comes through what Jesus has said, I've come that you might have life and have it to the full. And that's an amazing promise that he brings, and many, many women and men have experienced that healing and that promise fulfilled in their own lives. The next program we're going to share together, the fourth one in our series, will bring to us some people who have been through an abortion experience, who have been through that circumstance in their own life and have come to realise that there is that forgiveness in the Lord Jesus Christ. And we're going to meet them in the next program. So thank you for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you.